Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Elevated Thoughts. Of course, we've got Recycle Mike here joining me today for our Left versus Right series, but we've also brought in one of our close personal friends, John, and we wanted to bring him on the show this week because we see John a little bit of as someone that has his finger on the pulse of American culture, pop culture, and the way that our youth, as a couple of 30-year-olds might interpret what the youth are doing. But I always like to hear what this guy has to say. We went to college together, as did Mike and I. And today what we planned was, let's bring up a couple things, run the gambit on some of the stuff that's happening in our country, in our society, happening online, happening in politics. And let's see what we come up with, see if we can elevate any thoughts. So, John, first thing I want to ask you is, if you don't mind answering the question, can you kind of summarize your feelings about the current state of politics, or more so the current state of our culture, just so we have an understanding of your frame of mind as you talk to us today?
Appreciate that. Well, first of all, I'd like to say that you say about the youth, depending on who you're talking to, we are the youth still, my friend.
That is
we
true.
are. In a society that's living older and older and older. You know, where I think we are politically, I think it was an inevitability based upon past 30, 40 years. Now, what I write about, got to plug the Substack right off rip. John from Long Island on Substack. I have not been writing. I will get back to it. It's free for now, worth the follow. Basically, my overarching thesis would be that we are in a very interesting situation in our culture, and I think a lot of it is based upon personal values and personal views on the world are emitting themselves through personal behavior. Okay, and personal behavior creates personal opinions and frameworks on how we go through this world, which then leads to how we view certain things and divisive issues that we talk about all the time, that you two talk about, and that leads to the political divide too. So I basically would say the way that I see things is that there's definitely a schism. I'm not going to say left versus right. I'm not going to say, Republican versus Democrat. It's the autonomous, those that want to strive to be the best they can be, or provide a certain type of life for themselves and those that they love. And when I write, I try to speak to an audience that has that in mind.
Yeah.
That has the mindset of growth in mind and the mindset of navigating all of the changes, because a year is not what it used to be, right? If we're in the 1970s, a year turns over, you're still going to go to the mailbox, open up the mail, turn on the television. Now, with advancements in tech, the rate at which things happen, how small the world's gotten, whether that's through social media or through travel or through cryptocurrency and the exchange of money, time is not just accelerating the way that we feel it, but years, we now have decades of advancement in months to a year's time. So a lot of what I write about too is how to navigate that and how you can basically internalize all the changes around you to be the best you could be, make sense of it, and stay on the path to making something out of yourself.
Yeah, I love that. It's almost like we're living in fast forward now. And it's a function of exponential growth with this technology. I actually was just listening to a scientist who is an AI researcher at Google on Rogan. He was there yesterday. And that's exactly what he was saying, is people don't recognize that exponential growth factor. And if you only grow and better yourself, as you were saying, by like 2-3% every year, or in this case, if technology is increasing in speed and in proliferation 2 or 3% every year, all of a sudden 5 years, 10 years, 50 years later, oh my gosh, we've created this monster. And it could be a good thing in that sense, but it also could be a bad thing. So
it's a great way to look at it.
Yeah. And I appreciate though that you didn't necessarily tie yourself to a side. And Mike, I want you to echo that, because right, we've been doing this show for I think 5-6 weeks now, and we've always managed to avoid the battle and come up with a way to find common ground. I'm getting sick of hearing myself say it.
Yeah, it's sure it's never easy, right? But it's always the part of the challenge, and I just think that it's our duty, not just us specifically, but to be examples at least for other people to show that it takes hard work, and it only is getting harder and harder with the social boundaries that we keep to finding ourselves facing. Kind of touching on what John was saying, right? We find people suiting up for their team, and it now is the lens with which how they're going to view this issue, and there's no nuance to it, and there's no discussion anymore, and there's no changing anybody's mind. So unfortunately, it's not easy work to do that.
Yeah. Well, this is a great segue into bringing up what I have queued up here first. In fact, John, I'm going to pass it to you after we watch this clip.
Ozempic. my Ozempic Tri-Zone, I lowered my A1C, CV risk, and lost some weight.
In studies, the majority of people reached an A1C under 7 and maintained it. Ozempic lowers the risk of major cardiovascular events, such as stroke, heart attack, or death, in adults also with known heart disease. And you may lose weight. Adults lost up to 14 pounds. Ozempic isn't for people with type 1 diabetes. Don't share needles or pens or reuse needles. Don't take Ozempic if you or your family ever had medullary thyroid cancer or have multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2 or if allergic to it. Stop Ozempic and get medical help right away if you get a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, or an allergic reaction. Serious side effects may include pancreatitis. Gallbladder problems may occur. Tell your provider about vision problems or changes.
All right. So listen, I will say this. The people certainly seemed happy, right? Some of them were a little chunkier. Some of them were pretty thin, but the people seemed happy, John. What do you got to say?
I don't know if you can hear the sound of my skin crawling through your headphones, but this is something, the reason I brought it up is twofold, right? One, I hear about this drug all the time, socially, all the time. It's probably the second most common drug you see socially.
But do you actually know people in real life that are taking it? Because I don't think I do.
Dog, I know like 20 people taking it.
Oh, really? And they have to go to a doctor to get it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, yes, you do, but like it's not like a high bar. Like my mother-in-law is taking it and is finding a lot of success, but I just kind of interject and steal a little bit of John's thunder here. It's just funny because like when I go on vacation outside the U.S., it's kind of fascinating, like the difference in both culture and laws. There are no like medicine commercials with like joyful fucking like sitcom like music. It's like kind of like mind blowing, right? Like I don't know, but if you didn't know what Ozempic does, like I got to get me some because it's getting me to those monster truck shows. It's getting me to spend some more time with my family. Like it seems like a fun drug. I got to get a hold of that stuff.
And the best part of these,
exactly.
Prescription commercials are at the end when the couple's walking hand in hand along the riverside with the dog in tow. Side effects may include severe depression, anxiety, death,
diarrhea, and vomiting may cause dehydration.
Yeah, and that's the least serious.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
All right, so
don't worry though; they have pills that manage those side
what
effects.
is the issue with this drug?
Here.
Yeah.
First off, let me clear myself out here of any blowback or anger. I recognize that every drug is created for a reason. There are people that genuinely need this. And I would never, again, I have a very hardline personal view that you never give somebody a hard time for something they didn't choose. If somebody was born with like a deformity or some sort of psychological issue or something, that you can't poke fun at them for that.
Well, Ozempic is diabetes, yeah?
Yeah, but that's not the intended use. Everyone's using it to lose weight. Whereas to continue on with that framework, if someone chooses to mistreat people, you can make fun of them for that. I was going to say if someone chooses a poor outfit, but no, because as a fashion guy, if someone's at least trying to put a cool fit on, you can't touch it. Like, hey, they tried, and I like that. I knew I wasn't supposed to do any research for this, but this is the one part I did do some research on. Ozempic, without prescription, $892.06 a month.
Wow.
With a prescription. $25 a month. LA Fitness, $30 a month with a $40 sign-up fee. Planet Fitness, $10 a month, $29.99 sign-up fee. Walking outside, free. And the reason this gets me so triggered, and I'll use the word triggered because I'm absolutely triggered right now, okay? I'm like a blue-haired girl at the Trump rally, and I don't even care, is because it flies in the face of the personal mantra I said when you introduced me. And that is, you got to take your life into your own hands. You got to count what you're good at, what you're not good at, and use the cards you were dealt, be the best you possibly can be, and write your own ticket. And I just think that this culture of, I'm going to take Ozempic for my wedding day, or I'm going to take Ozempic for this. Ozempic actually had a header ad on YouTube the other night. God is my witness. Don't be big on your big day.
So they're totally marketing it now away from diabetes and just a sense of pure weight loss.
I mean, that is if Adderall had an ad like, don't screw up finals, bro.
Yeah, that would be damaging.
You're just buying it from your boy down the hall. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that is very interesting.
Think that on a larger scale, I just think the proliferation of a mindset like this, especially in a country where we have obesity epidemics, health epidemics, we're the most unhealthy, rotten. We're turning into the people from the end of Wall-E on the things floating around. I just think it's like the worst thing for society because it opens the door for other things too, that, hey, this is wrong with me too. I'm just going to have the pill. That's wrong with me too. And the problem is, yes, we've been in this culture for a long time, but this is so instantaneous. Yeah. This is so instantaneous, and we don't know the long-term effects. And it's just something that I see, and when I hear people that I love and I care about tell me they're going to take it, this and that, not only is it disheartening, I hate to say that, but it's disheartening for me to hear, but it also has me worried for them. It's like, 5, 10, 20 years out, because we're all going to live to 110, whether we're on the woolly bed or we're bipedal organisms. You don't know what's going to happen. So I have a lot of issues with it, and that's why it's one of the topics that I wanted to speak with you two today.
Yeah, no, I'm grateful you bring it up. I mean, I think there's a broader theme going on in our country where people aren't expected anymore to have agency in themselves. People are expecting that a solution is fed to them, or that a welfare check is sent to them. Or I remember when the pandemic hit, right? Even it was Trump who sent out $1,200, and I will reveal myself, I didn't get it. I priced out, but so I was a little jealous, actually. I could have used it, but the truth be told, right? People are not responsible for their own outcomes anymore. And Mike, I will put the heat on you a little bit, right? That it's more so, I think, the Democrats, right? Give Trump his due shit talking, right, for sending out those checks. But at the end of the day, it really is the Democrats that kind of are bringing up this whole, we have to spread the wealth, we have to do this welfare, we have to make sure that people are taken care of and lifted up, right? The whole equity thing as opposed to equality. It literally proves that you have to give certain groups or certain subsects of people, whether it's race, gender, identity, you have to give them an advantage because that's what's fair. But is it fair? And if you give them a semaglutide injection, is that actually helping them? Probably not, right? Wouldn't you agree?
So I definitely think that there's a difference between people who are later in life and using it versus people who are younger in life to be using it as a weight loss aid because they don't feel like going to the gym, they don't feel like dieting, right? I think that it's kind of like it's like a hormone replacement therapy, right? Like it should be one of those cards in your hand that you should be playing like much later in life when you've kind of exhausted all your other options, right? So, but if you're playing, and I say the same thing, I'm in Miami, right? So we have like Botox, fillers, you name it, for all these aesthetic surgeries. I'm like, save that stuff when you're like 60 and 70, right? When you can really like pull that card and you can get a lot out of it, And it's like people doing it in like their 20s and 30s. I'm like, you're playing your ace card so early, if you're going to be doing that. And then, when we're talking like hormonal replacements, now we're not just talking about, simpler aesthetic, surgeries. We're talking about, potential metabolic damage, which, as John said, we don't know the long-term effects, but you have companies like, it's not just Ozempic, right? It's Wegovy and I forget the other one or two that are out there. They're all rushing to be able to get this off-label use approved because this is great money for them, I find it interesting if we juxtapose this with the opioid pandemic, right? Like, so a lot of those opioid manufacturers are under a lot of heat for their, for their responsibility in pushing these drugs onto the market. Are people going to hold these companies to account if they're happy with the results of losing weight, if it doesn't mean, worrying about those consequences till 10, 20 years later?
I think they
right?
will.
That's
Mike, a couple of things you said there I thought were very prescient. One is you're talking about the Sackler family. Right? And I think that's where we can have some commonality in what we both believe. And I think those people should absolutely be held accountable. They knew what was going on. Doctors handing this stuff out like candy. And again, a lot of this is coming from an empathetic standpoint. Maybe it's tough love from my standpoint, but I want to see people do the best they can under their own agency. And I also don't want to see them have any long-term effects. I think all of us, and again, in commonality, know people that struggle with opioids as well. It was too easy to get. And Mike, I think it's funny because you and I have spent a lot of time in the weight room together. Maybe not in a long time, but we had some good days in the weight room. I remember reading a T Nation article that said exactly what you said. That gear, steroids, it's your ACE card. And it's not an ACE card you should be playing at 19 years old, which is so prevalent to go to the gym now. These broccoli-haired kids with the biceps out to here. It's like, dude, I will place $50,000. Your 30th birthday is going to be a memorial service. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's not good.
Sure.
But no, those are absolutely
we see it in our sport.
Yeah, not to mention the 300 milligrams of caffeine that they're drinking before the workout. That's another thing that's just came to the surface is all of these drinks that are literally at the lethal limit of how much caffeine can we pump into you, and C4 pre-workout sold in a can. Yeah.
They feel good.
But have you felt the pump, though?
Gotta give it to them. So does the opiates, right? But But listen, I mean, I hear like guys like Andrew Huberman or Joe Rogan. I mean, Joe Rogan takes HRT. He's 54. But the truth is, right, that might be that level where you're ready to take it. He's probably been taking it for a decade. But these guys always talk about one supplement in particular, Athletic Greens or AG1. I'm curious if that is like a scam. Should we just be eating vegetables, or is AG1 worthwhile? You know, because right, John, by your argument, what?
I feel like this is right up Mike's alley, but go ahead. To my argument,
because by that logic that you just said would be, okay, I could take Athletic Greens. I never have to go to the produce section at Kroger's anymore. I could just take my Athletic Greens that gets shipped to my door. Why would I need fresh produce, right? But obviously there's...
I'm not 100% familiar, but is this like one of those powdered vegetable product that, you know, was done at freeze dried at the peak of freshness, so all the antioxidants... Yeah, I mean, you know, if you're eating absolute garbage all the time, is it better than garbage? I suppose, you know, but yeah, you should be eating, you know, whole vegetables, you know, if you know, where you can. That's obviously the preferred.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the bioavailability of all those nutrients, like they're better absorbed in your body when they're in the food that you're digesting it with, as opposed to try to take like either a pill or powder, et cetera, et cetera. Again, that's why they're called supplements. They're not supposed to, you know, you know, exactly. They're not supposed to take away parts of it.
Anybody that does this for a week, eat healthy, have protein bars from 7-Eleven, go into the thing, pull out the Fairlife. Shout out Fairlife, it's dope, but like, have that, and do the bars in the Fairlife every single day. Take a mirror selfie on a Sunday. Go back the next week. Spend some money at Whole Foods. Spend the time preparing the food. Use that instead. Take that same photo, because the preservatives and the sodium buildup. Right. You're not going to have the cheeks. You're going to be sleek. You're going to look better. You're going to feel better. Oh, but I need to get my 192, bro.
Yeah.
It's not about that. It's about your point, Mike. The bioavailability.
You know when you're You know when you're eating a protein bar, half of it's coming out the way it went in.
You know, sometimes it just gives you that ping right here where you're like, oh, why did I do that?
A little bit of itis, yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's not real food, right? It's protein supplement.
Hey,
so again,
I'll just be vulnerable here. I mean, I'm probably the weak link out of us three, where my weight tends to fluctuate maybe a little more than your guys. I have like a 30-pound range here, you know, every 2 years or so. But I have found that it's pretty difficult to flip that switch in your head to say, hey, I'm fat, I got a problem, I got to start eating right. It's very ingrained to say, I'm going to work. I got to get my Dunkin' Donuts. I got to get my bacon, egg, and cheese. I sit at my office. Oh, it's noon. I'm leaving my office now. I got to get my sandwich. It's the only Subway in town, right? And then you get home and, oh, man, we're making ice cream sundaes for dessert because the kid wants it or the friend's coming over and it's Bachelor is on TV tonight. We have to have an ice cream sundae. So it's very difficult. And
sure.
I empathize with people, but John, you said it great. Tough love, right? We're not helping the people if we're putting them on it.
Tough love from a standpoint of empathy.
Right.
Tough love from a standpoint, and also the difficulty is what gives it value.
Yeah, that's true, and it gives you fulfillment. Yes.
If everybody was in shape, then where's the value in it?
Right.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. So this week we had the State of the Union address, and our graceful, jovial, triumphant, lovely leader has delivered some words, and she was apprehended by, she's not my favorite, a lot of people like her, Marjorie Taylor. And when he was walking down the aisle, he gave her the face, she handed him a pin, say her name, she commanded him. And I think he did say it, but then later on he determined, okay, I'm going to lift up the pin, and here's what we get.
Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand.
Wasn't Lincoln Riley a football coach?
No, when he Lord knows if I wouldn't know.
I'll look it up right now.
Yeah, I'm looking it up too. Yep, Lincoln Riley. You're exactly right, John.
Yeah.
This is why you're on. For random trivia like that.
That's all I bring to the table.
He coached the USC Trojans, 40 years old, Lincoln Riley. So I guess that USC football coach was murdered by an illegal? Is that right?
Clearly.
Can't call him that.
Right. So, John, which one were you more outraged by? When he misspoke on the citizen girl's name who was murdered, or when he classified the foreign alien who crossed the border in despite of our very strict laws and constraints, that he referred to him as illegal? Which one were you more triggered by?
Let me tell you what bothers me about the situation, right? And first, because I said I can see both sides, as someone who admires style, great suit on Biden that night. Great suit. I mean, the proportions, everything, the blue tie, it fit really well. His pocket square was done well. I don't know if Kamala did that for him. Everything was to a T. No collar gap, just really well done.
Maybe.
The part that bothers me the most about it is that it's a young woman lost her life, and instead of both sides coming together to realize how horrible that is, a young woman with her whole life ahead of her, that it's a partisan issue.
Yeah.
That's what really bothers me. And yes, the illegal thing is what I brought up to you.
No
the
doubt.
fact that it's a partisan issue, that the fact that it's well, are you on the side that's actually sad about her death, or are you on the side that is mad they called him illegal? How come we're all not on the side that a young woman who's going to go do great things lost her life? You know, and the fact that the media narrative after that was the fact that Biden said the I word and called him illegal. Yeah. You know, to me, that really was like a bellwether for where we are as a society. And it's just like, wow, this is where we are.
And to be clear, they coerced him into an apology for using the I word.
Yeah. And to me, that's just like a sign. Again, I think this is going back to the same thesis that I've brought to the show today, which is fine because that's kind of what I wanted to get out, and it's what is central to my writing, is that we're losing our humanity in the process of this division.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely. There's more politically to gain to use her, either to try to criticize Biden, or he wants to deflect from it during their presidency rather than
and
address
let me tell you,
the
the right's wrong too. The right's wrong too. We got him. We were able to disrupt his speech and get him to mention her. How come we're both not more than the young woman that lost her life? And she was going to go do great things.
There's a comprehensive bill on the floor, right?
But now
so
she's being
there's a lot of
weaponized.
really.
Well, listen, the bill is a whole other conversation. As someone who's studied it on the right, I don't subscribe to it. It still allows almost 2 million illegals into the country every year. Listen, I'll be the first to say that I think that what Marjorie Taylor Greene did was also, in a way, political theater, and I might even call it despicable. She went up there dressed like a pack of Marlboro Reds. She looked weird, Make America Great Again hat during the State of the Union. Come on, is it classy? No.
It makes it people like me to difficult to vote for Republicans if that's who they're going to be their main candidate in terms of small dollar donorship.
Well, now she becomes associated with Lake and Riley. Now, is that the girl that Marjorie Taylor Greene was talking about? She lends her reprehensible public persona to a girl, to an innocent girl,
poisons the entire conversation.
Loses the
poisons
plot.
the entire
Exactly.
conversation.
Loses the plot.
Yeah. Yeah, well, hey, it happens all over town, right? When you have a mass shooting, God forbid we get those under control, but God willing, we get those under control. God forbid we have more of them. I don't want to be, but right.
Be very clear about
who
that.
underwent the terrible act. Sometimes their identity and how they identify will dictate how much publicity that occurrence gets. So every crisis is capitalized. And in fact, somebody recently said it out loud. I forget who it was, but it was a Democrat politician. And it always gets blown up to say, oh no, they said the quiet part out loud. But they did. You'd never let a good crisis go to waste. And that's what we see all around town, both sides capitalizing on it. Strange, honestly. So weird. But listen, with all of this infighting, we do get a little bit of entertainment. And actually, Mike, this one's your clip. I'm going to pull it up. This is from The Daily Show making a joke. Let's see what they have to say.
Tonight, America saw, let's say, a very different Joe Biden. I might call him Jacked Up Joe.
Fired up.
Feisty, fiery, combative.
And he showed some tremendous vigor. I'd like a sip of whatever they gave him.
And he was pissed.
Mad, and the veins bulge on his head.
Hyper-caffeinated.
He was really going fast at points.
He seemed really jacked up.
Jacked Up Joe screaming.
Jacked Up Joe, right?
This was not your grandfather's State of the Union speech.
I'm jacked up, Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
All right, Mike, why do you like this commercial?
I love the hypocrisy that he's both, senile out of it and stuff like that. Now he's so energetic and he's a dangerous man when he's on a mission here. I just think it's funny that he could be both things at the same time. Not to give him credit that he doesn't wander about on stage and forget where he is or what he's saying sometimes. It just speaks to when you're stuck in color journalism, right? When you just do opinion pieces all the time and those types of shows, right? You can never take any stance but what's this predetermined position, and you can never speak about anything else but how awful the State of the Union address is. So
I think Mike makes a great point there. I think that's a very good point that, he's Sleepy Joe and now he's jacked up and he's a maniac. But to harken back to our conversation about drugs, what was in the cocktail before he got out there? Now, I do have to say, I thought, aside from that really nice suit, I thought he spoke a lot better than I anticipated he would have, right? So you have to give him credit there. By the same token, we don't know what he's on. They could have shot him up with adrenaline beforehand. You don't know what kind of cocktail he was on. I think what they're speaking to is the unnatural nature of it, that it wasn't authentic energy, that it was just this crazy, haywire, manufactured quasi-enthusiasm.
So I think, for my concern as someone left of center, this is what concerns me about Joe Biden, is it's not on his best days when he's fully rested, right? He's 81 years old, so he doesn't have the stamina to always be 110% in the most demanding job in the world, right? The leader of the free world. So that's the thing, is I think Republicans ought to be afraid, because when he is on it, he is very precise and deliberate in his actions. And if you look at his first 100 days, he delivered on a lot of his promises and things like that, and he's taking advantage of, even despite having not a majority in Congress, able to pass some pretty key legislation. So I think that the biggest threat is, just like any propaganda, when you make your enemy look like a clown, and then when you actually face them, in real life, and they're not this joke that you once thought they were, you could be pretty unprepared. So I think that's what Republicans should probably remind themselves, is that as a candidate, he's not as much of a pushover as people make him out to be.
You said something else, Mike, too, that almost there's a predetermined notion that before he even uttered a word in that State of the Union, you knew the press on the right was going to say, it sucked, it was brutal, all of these things. Whereas the fact of the matter was, it wasn't really that bad. And I think when we go into writing opinion pieces with a predetermined opinion, and that's something I have a lot more to say. Maybe you guys give me some moment after this. But yeah, that's definitely a very good point. That they had this canned idea that it sucked before they even heard it. You can't go on like that. This young lady is already struggling because she roots for the Buffalo Sabres. So let's hear what she has to say.
This was going to be my rebuttal to that video, because, in fact, it happened the exact reverse way. And as you watch this video, she's literally reading Project 47, which is, I think, Trump's plan going into the office, or going into 2024.
Right.
And you'll see, right? Someone like of my ilk listens to what she's saying, and it's like, wait, you're saying this is bad stuff? This is good stuff. So here she is.
We can safely assume that Trump is going to be the Republican nominee for president. Here are the first 15 promises he has made if he is reelected. You may have heard of Project 2025, but this is from Agenda 47, and you can read all of these on his website. First, he promises that he will carry out the largest domestic deportation operation in history. He will also ask for the death sentence for anyone convicted of human trafficking. He will close the Department of Education and return all education standards to the states to decide. He will put prayer back into school, and he will criminalize any race-based advantage programs. He will end the Affordable Care Act. He will ban gender-affirming care for adults and children, and he will ban any federal dollars from going towards gender-affirming care, which means anyone with government-provided health care will no longer be able to access gender-affirming care except for Viagra and Cialis. Those will still be available. He will propose a constitutional amendment that gives a term limit to Congress. He will deploy the Department of Justice to investigate the Biden crime family and any of his adversaries or political rivals. He will immediately pardon all of the January 6thers, and he will create a task force to investigate anyone who arrested, charged, or imprisoned a January 6er. He will increase the penalties for underage criminal offenders, strengthen immunity for police officers, and deploy the National Guard to patrol woke cities. On day one, he will reassess our participation in NATO and says that every European country needs to pay the United States for protection.
So as you saw, our friend here that roots for the Buffalo Sabres is reading off Trump's specific points that he's going to do when he gets into office terrified that these could become reality. And like I just said, someone who associates with the right is kind of like, wow, thank goodness someone's finally going to do these things, you know? And that was what Trump's repeal really is to much of this country. So, listen, I mean, it goes both ways, right? And that's really the message. So with that, listen, what I'd like to do next is I have some statistics that I'm going to bring up. And John, I'm going to hopefully surprise you with some of these, but I'm sure that you're aware, because I don't know if people are listening who are aware, you are a corporate real estate or a commercial real estate agent. So corporate real estate broker. Good. Thank you for correcting me. So what I have is some statistics, but as I bring those up, you mentioned that you have strong opinions about writing articles with predetermined conclusions before the process has gone through. So if you want to talk to that, why don't you?
Give me air.
Because it is the manifestation in a tangible form of an aspect of human nature that's become more and more common that I simply cannot stand. And that is when you speak with a person and you're about to say a true story or true facts, and the person receiving your words can tell that the factuality of the statement you're going to make is something that flies in the face of their personal beliefs or personal paradigm, and midway through your sentence, or even the first couple of words, you see their face start to change. And you know you're getting hit with, well, I don't know if that's true. I mean, it could be true as to the effect of the sky is blue, and you know they're just going to be like, yeah, well, I don't know about that. You don't know about that. I just laid it out for you. In plain American English, yeah, but you know what? Give me a counter argument. Well, I don't really know if I want to get into this. It's just like anything that challenges their worldview. So when I see articles that are basically pre-written prior to an event that people have a canned response to or a canned reaction they know they have to hug the party line, whether that's left or right, it drives me nuts, because that is a tangible manifestation of that aspect of human nature that is just contagious and inescapable.
Yeah. Well, we have the perfect example. We just talked about it, right? The right is seizing the opportunity to say he called her Lincoln Riley, and the left is seizing on the fact that he called him an illegal and they trapped him and she looked not classy. So, right, you could probably glean the message from those articles by the headline alone. And that's another systemic issue, right? Just reading headlines. What a problem.
It makes for very, very boring media, and to the point that people just read headlines. I can't tell you how many times a day I see somebody repost like a news article and like they comment on it, and you read the news article and it's like, you clearly didn't even read anything past the title. This is not at all what the article says. And then you make that point and then they delete their post, because it's kind of this, we're in the age of audience capture, and fact checking is hard. That takes time and a lot of work, and I don't want to do that. I need to make content, so I just have to kind of disregard whether I have to figure out if it's true or not. I'll worry about just making more and more content and just bury that.
So on my crusade, Mike, to get you to return to X, I will have John confirm. Didn't Twitter 1.0, if you tried to tweet out an article that you didn't click or read, it would say, hey, would you like to read the article before you send it out?
Yes.
Yeah, of course you had the option to skip that, but yeah, it was, look,
which everyone did.
To their credit. All right. So
but that happens quite a lot with New York Post articles down here, because New York Post, who I happen to like, are known for their sensationalist headlines, but then you click the headline and it's not quite in line with what you had read just from the first phrase.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, but John, if you've listened to our shows, we actually say that in one of our episodes is like, yeah, we're titling these left versus right because, of course, we have our political affiliations and our leanings. But at the end of the day, it's actually become difficult for Mike and I to debate topics we agree too simply. So, no, here's the next thing, and maybe we can find ways to disagree on this, because I do think that it's a little bit more systemic as per our leadership right now in the country. But on the screen here, what you'll see is, and I'll just read it out loud. So owning the average home in 2024 now requires an income of $106,000. Just 4 years ago, you only needed $59,000 in income to afford the average home. That's a $47,000 or an 80% increase in income from 2020 alone, while wages are only up 23% in that time. So the median income household is in the U.S. is $75,000, and in other words, it used to be 27% above the income needed to afford a home, but now it is 41% below the income level needed to just afford a home. So with that, what I wanted to then build off of, because that's an isolated data point. It definitely shows that people are having trouble affording homes. There's no question about that. But when you go a little bit further and we see, wait a minute, maybe this isn't just happening with homes. This is also happening in office spaces. So this one, it shows a different chart, but it actually shows that office vacancy rates are skyrocketing. The latest data shows that the office vacancy rate in the U.S. is about to hit 20% for the first time in history. And even during the height of the pandemic, the vacancy rates did not break above 19%. So what was really gripping to me on these two charts, and they're on the screen right now, is that during the pandemic, when the situation was what we thought as bad as it could get, it is now worse, period. So when we look at that,
Wow.
one fifth of all office buildings are unoccupied. And I work in the elevator world, so I deal with property management companies. I deal with owners of buildings. I even work as a property manager for a commercial building. So what I have experienced is that many of these commercial buildings are converting to residential because there is a market for it if it can be afforded, but people aren't buying houses. They're renting. So these data points point to that trend. And I'm curious, John, if what you do day to day leasing spaces for commercial businesses, do you experience that it's harder or the rates have gone down? What's your findings?
Okay, first of all, with those stats, my man.
What?
You're after my own heart with that. I'm proud of you. So just to shed some light on what I do, I'm a commercial real estate broker. I sell buildings. All right. So that whether that's I've sold office buildings, triple net properties, industrial warehouses, retail strips, things like that. So I don't do a whole lot of leasing. If I do, it's more in the shopping center space. That being said, one thing I want to say is the conversion, especially here on Long Island, from office to residential, NIMBYism is incredibly contagious down here. And the aversion to building apartments and the creation of rentable communities is so high that people just say, oh, just switch the office to the residential because it's similar layout. It's just not so simple. You're talking $20,000, $30,000 a unit per unit to do that. So that's not such an easy lift.
Right.
Okay, so what I'm finding here on the island is that warehouse space is just flying off the shelves. Any warehouse inventory you get because of the breadth and the magnitude of e-commerce. Retail, Amazon's not going to do your nails. Amazon's not going to get a slice of pizza for you. Amazon's not going to have the boutique fitness place for you. Yes, the dry goods store, done for. You know, the pet food shop, done for.
Yeah.
So retail thriving. Office, it was getting hurt before the pandemic happened, and now there's a multitude of factors. One is remote work, right? Not only that, remote work, people think, oh, remote work's so awesome. Is it, though? Because if you can do your job remotely, then someone across the pond from Lord knows where can do your job at pennies on the dollar, right? So a lot of companies realize that they could downsize. And then not only that, and this is what's going on now too, is that office space goes by classes, Class A, Class B, and Class C, right? You could be a Class C quality tenant, but now with the scope of vacancy and the lack of office building tenants, now, even if you're a Class C tenant, you go look at a Class A building, you're the pretty girl at the dance, and you can dictate the terms. So not only are landlords having a tough time recouping tenants or attracting new ones, the ones they do, they have to lay it all out. They have to roll out the red carpet for you and give you sweetheart rent. So office will continue to struggle.
Yeah.
But to tie this into what you were saying about home ownership, listen, that sucks. There's no sugarcoating that. But everyone's born at a certain time in American history. We were born in the 1930s. We'd be born in the Great Depression. We were born in 60s, 70s, whatever. We'd be over there in Vietnam. That's our battle to fight. The game got harder. So to tie that all back together, oh, I'm working from home. I go on Microsoft Teams and I hit the away button and no one notices so I can play Fortnite on the side. Well, bro, don't cry to me when you can't afford a house. It sucks, but the stakes got higher. You're not going to change the game. Play the game harder. That's my view on it.
Yeah. Hey, listen, you encapsulate tough love. I think that makes a lot of sense, honestly. But you're right. I like what you said that if you were born in the 20s, yeah, you'd have a certain set of situations that weren't necessarily fun. Same if you were born in the 40s, right? Or the 70s, as you said. So, yeah. I mean, Mike, you see housing boom going on because you're in Miami. So I'm just for our viewers, I'm in Connecticut. John, you're out in Long Island, and Mike, now you're down in Miami on Long Island. Oh my goodness, wow. So
Asterix. Yeah, it's
Fair.
very
Sorry,
specific.
I've had 4 years out on that island, and I still don't know it. So, Mike, what do you see? I mean, I think you just recently purchased a place, right?
That's right. So I bought a condo and a high rise. I'm sorry, and so there's definitely a big change that's going on in Miami. Thankfully, from my perspective, is despite the interest rates going up and the broader market all over the country kind of cooling off a little bit in prices. Not so much in Miami. Prices have kind of been pretty durable, but that does speak to the challenge of the people who want to buy a home here. A lot of the new inventory is rental only. So there is not an option to even purchase anymore. So I'm really thankful that I kind of got in, ahead of the curve a little bit, because I'm part of that, up and coming neighborhood before it's there, right? So you got to kind of stay in it while it's a little shady, it's a little cheaper. But soon enough, like I said, the buildings all around me, they're not going to, have any kind of ownership opportunities for anybody. So I read another article recently about how our generation, millennials specifically, are poised to actually do better off than our parents finally, financially. But it's solely contingent on whether you inherit the family's home or not. And there are many, many parents that when I'm looking for a home, it was just my wife and I looking for the mortgage. We bought it all out by ourselves. When I had lines of people behind me, I had a combination of doctors from New York who were, it's a doctor in New York who's FaceTiming the real estate agent. Oh, just go around and just show me a bunch of places they're going to buy it, just based off of what they see. I've got foreign wealthy nationals, both from Venezuela and China, who need to park their money here because their currency is so volatile that, they'll take whatever they can get and park it in US dollars. And then I have a lot of end of life kind of career money that parents have that they can establish their children off and buy this home for them. For people who have to take out a mortgage, we don't stand a chance. So those are all cash offers I just described to you. And then John touched on it too, is we're facing a lot of NIMBY issues, right? So, and it isn't just too much of that you have real estate firms and wealthy individuals purchase everything, but there's so much zoning problems of not creating enough inventory. So Coral Gables, for instance, which is kind of nearby me, a very beautiful neighborhood, wonderful place to live. There's no new construction going on, not only space availability, but because nobody wants to zone anymore. So it's only going to compound the problem if we ever get to a lower interest rate again. There's just going to be a massive inventory shortage again. And that is to say, if there is even any units for purchase anymore now that everything becomes,
so there's actually
only.
two sides to this coin. When you listen to guys like Grant Cardone, who's that millionaire out of Texas, and he does wealth, real estate advice and self-help motivation speeches, he will say, never own a home. Take your money that you'd use for your deposit, make a business, buy real estate, flip it, rent it, whatever, right? But never buy the home. All businesses now, they don't own their properties. They rent their properties or in general. So maybe there is this shift to, okay, it just makes more sense, right? You no longer buy your copy of Windows 95. You now pay Microsoft or whoever for access to your subscription service. It's kind of similar, right? You don't have that ownership. You're part of the crew.
I want to push back on that. So I understand the minimalist lifestyle, but I like to say cui bono, who benefits, right? Like that's the Latin phrase for who would benefit from such a thing. Well, clearly the banks and these large real estate firms that are buying up all this property and making them rental only buildings. Of course, they want to convince you your money is best parked elsewhere. But when I'm looking at the comps, the valuations from the last sales of all the buildings when I went to go buy this condo. Every 5 or 10 years, the value is doubling. And I'm talking going from, $50,000 to, right around the turn of the century, right? Millennium, I should say. And now in 2024, they're going from like $50,000 to $80,000 to like, $350,000 to $600,000. That I can't think of a better investment in 20 years than something like that, right? So, of course, all these companies, are pushing you to the non-ownership lifestyle.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So, in that statistic, right, you have the median household income, $75,000, right? For many people in the Northeast, where it's a little bit higher cost of living, that may actually seem relatively low for a household income. And when you look at what is needed to purchase a home at $106,000, you think, wait a minute, there's like a million millionaires, so 100K is nothing to those folks. So right, this is creating a bigger divide of the wealthy to the haves to the have-nots, right? And Mike, I was just talking to someone today about our Cold War episode and how we dived into a lot of that, but it was at the end of the day, right? All of our history and imperialism and the bourgeoisie versus the elite, right, and the aristocracies. We have it. We have it right now in our country, and it's very interesting to see the history come full circle. So I love sharing these statistics, and John, I'm really grateful for your input on that, because I see it from a certain point of view where I'm actually, I'm a sales rep. I'm trying to sell a building service to an office that's half vacant, or they can't afford to even pay their bills, let alone pay to upgrade their elevators. But you're seeing it from a sense like, hey, it's not so easy just to pack up, move out, change things. You're gonna
especially not in a place with the density and the different municipalities that Long Island has. And I'd like to say something just to round it out.
Zoning.
Oh, zoning, of course. I mean, my father's a zoning attorney. I know zoning so well. Yes, the game's getting harder. And by the way, I'm totally sympathetic. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, it's getting harder. Just work harder. That's great. No, I think it sucks too. I'm just making peace with the reality of the situation. But that being said, first of all, Miami, great city on the forefront of tech adoption. People are flocking there. Talk about a city that gets it. But you mentioned Grant Cardone. Well, I'm a big fan of. Shout out Uncle Jim.
There you go.
Are things harder than they've ever been? Of course. But at what other point in time could you go onto YouTube and have a almost billionaire like that break down for free how to get started, how property works, how commercial cash flow works? So yes, the game's gotten harder. We've established that. But on the flip side, the tools are there, and there's free information available at an exponential rate. I mean, you'd have to, like back in the old days, knock on the door of a shopping center and be like, excuse me, is Mr. Grant Cardone going to be here today? And then you better hope he doesn't have 10 other places to be, because you're going to track him down outside his Lamborghini and be like, oh, can I talk to you? Now you can just sit back on your couch, bang, and watch and educate yourself. So for all of the downsides we deal with, and again, I'm sympathetic to the downsides. I deal with them too. I see it. On the flip side, we got tools at our fingertips. You got to use them.
Yeah. No, I love that, John. It's exactly right. There's no excuse anymore to say, I don't know how that works, or I don't know why this happens that way, because all the time I'll be even driving in my car and I'll just hear something on the radio. In fact, as I'm sitting here, you guys said the word NIMBY. I don't know what that is. I Googled it on my phone.
Not in my backyard. Yeah.
Now I know, right?
So real quick, if I could plug one thing to end the real estate conversation. Grant Cardone's good, but there's some salesmanship and some programs he tries to sell.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman in Florida, on the west coast of Florida, by way of New York, Ben Mala. He runs a YouTube account. I don't know Ben personally. I've spoken to him about a few deals. Life for Sale. He's a hard-nosed guy from the Rockaways that out of nothing made $500 million real estate empire and tells it to you straight. And I think anyone who's watching this who's like, oh, maybe I want to dip my toes into real estate, his channel, it's likable. It's for the everyman, and it's definitely something you should go check out. It's top notch.
Yeah, we'll link it here. Awesome.
For sure.
No, I think it's cool. And you mentioned the Rockaways. Oh my God, I have flashbacks to trying to visit Rockaway Beach in the summertime. It's just the most crowded place you can imagine. I don't know how people enjoy it. I'm so glad to be out of New York City.
I'll get you on to Toe Bay next time you're out.
Yeah.
Kind of Oyster Bay guy.
Yeah, well, you guys have the nice South Shore over there in Long Island. I only can enjoy the beautiful Long Island Sound here in Connecticut. It's not really any ocean
Still beautiful.
access.
I'll wave to you across.
Yeah, good. I could see your house. I could see Plum Island where they did all of those experiments. That's what we could see.
Interesting place.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, what else do you have today? You got anything you want to talk about?
No, I think we touched on a lot of good stuff, but I definitely want to plug back to our Citizens United, one of our earlier episodes, right? So if you want to see why a lot of the laws are the way and the things that we're talking about, I think it'd be a good opportunity to revisit that, and then follow the opensecrets.org, where you can see, who gets what money and what year, and how much, a certain sector or industry is donating. And it kind of is eye-opening. It's just a fun little experiment to kind of go through yourself and just see the influence on politics.
Yeah, very cool, man. Hey, listen, John, you will become, I think, our resident culture expert, because it's impeccable. I can't believe it. Every question we hurled at you, you kind of were ready for it, and I'm just grateful. So as a group here, I just can't thank us enough for staying engaged as we are, prepping like this, because when we talk about this sensationalized media, the clickbait, and when we wave our hands and acknowledge, hey, we do a little bit too, I think when people watch this stuff, they go, well, you know what, these guys really work to find that middle ground, find that answer, and they're not making excuses while they're remaining empathetic, they're staying polite, they're dropping one F-bomb here and there, but at the end of the day, you're welcome to if you'd like. We're going to already have to mark this as explicit, but the truth is that it's all interlaced, right? And this technology and this growth and this pace of growth has just made it a different world with a new set of challenges, but so many benefits that if people can't figure out how to take advantage of that, how far can you go to say, sorry, right? At a certain point.
Yeah. I really live by this motto that you got to be the change that you want to see in the world. I know it's cliche, and everybody says it all the time, but that's what you have to do. Like I like doing the social experiments in the elevators. Have a nice day, thank you, and this and that. And I like to see like a smile on somebody's face because I like to think that I planted a seed of kindness in them, and I hope that they're going to pass on just one more good, kind gesture out in the world that day. And if we all do that, right, it becomes a cumulative, and it's a little bit better place for all of us.
So are we wrapping up shop here?
Yeah, we are, but I just want to say one last thing. When you also go into elevators and do social experiments, don't be afraid. Hit that alarm button. Nobody's going to know. Just hit it. It's going to ring. It's really fun. You can do it. It's not illegal. You can do it.
Can I get a word before we dip out?
Go for it, John. What's up?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, first of all, I'm sad the fun time's ending. I want to thank you both for having me on. I really, really enjoyed it.
We're going to have you back, John.
Inspired me to get riding again, so I'm going to get back out there. I just want to say I know you both personally. I've known you for a long time. I've seen you guys in action. Coop, your leadership, your entrepreneurship. Mike, you as well. Always expanding ideas. You've been challenging yourself mentally and physically for as long as I've known you. You're both G's in my book. It was a real pleasure to be here with you both, and I love you guys.
Well, the feeling's mutual. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Whoa. No signs thrown up on our show here, guys. No, everyone, thank you so much. Please hit that subscribe button. We love you all. Thanks.